Out is a half-hour series focusing on the LGBTTQ community in Brandon, Manitoba, funded by the Community Radio Fund of Canada. The series shares the difficulties LGBTQ members have faced, the achievements and strides they have taken, and the support received from the community. We hope the stories shared will help those uncomfortable with any LGBTQ lifestyles understand the opposite point of view and become more sensitive to the struggles they face, as well as provide support and information for any LGBTTQ members in the area.
Hi, my name is Janek, and I am very proud to help bring to you Out, a new series dedicated to the LGBT2SQ community in Brandon. In these next few episodes, we will be featuring our coverage of Brandon Pride 2017, which happened the week of June 12th to the 18th. There was a week dedicated to events brought to you by the Brandon Pride Committee, and although this series was still off in the distance, I knew I had to grab my recorder for some vital digital files. It was pretty exciting for me because I had not attended previous Pride events in the past several years. I had a good reason to go, I was free up to do so, and the committee had put together a pretty solid schedule that I was really interested in checking out. I didn't attend all of the events, but several, and was not disappointed. Brandon Pride Week opened with the raising of the iconic rainbow flag at City Hall. A decent turnout of around 40 people came to support this event, which included speeches by Pride organizers, and Mayor Rick Chrest was glad to give us a quick interview after the ceremony.
Hi, I'm at Brandon City Hall at the Pride flag raising event, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to talk to Mayor Rick Chrest on this occasion. Thank you very much for joining me, Rick. Can you talk to me just generally about the importance of the flag raising ceremony here at Brandon City Hall today?
So I think it's extremely important to kick off Pride Week by raising the flag, and it'll fly all week long here above City Hall to really, show the inclusiveness and openness of our community. And it was a great day, great turnout, and it's fabulous to see the flag flying proudly on a gorgeous day in front of City Hall.
Very good, thank you. How many years have this been happening here at City Hall?
Well, I believe this is the third. Now, I know that it'll be the third annual Pride Parade. Now, I can't be certain whether or not we'd had the flag flying for longer than that, but certainly will be the third Pride Parade, which will, cap off this week's activities. Saturday morning, that will occur, starting again here at Brandon City Hall, which again I think is quite symbolic if you consider that City Hall is, sort of the community's city center, if you will, and to really show that the community is behind these activities.
Thank you very much. Do you have any special extra words for the LGBTQ community here in Brandon?
Well, I'm particularly proud of our community that right from the very beginning 3 years ago when the Pride Parade in particular started, it really started off with a big bang. A very large turnout. Was an extremely positive experience for all involved, and I would have to say that not every community has enjoyed such a positive beginning, and I really think it speaks to the openness and inclusiveness of Brandon. We've got a tremendous community who I feel is very welcome to all people, very inclusive, and I think that so proud to live in a community that really embraces this celebration right from the very beginning, and looking forward to another big one this Saturday.
So will you be at the parade this year?
Absolutely. I'll be there. I I was at the very first one. Last year I could only attend for a little one because there was because there was another activity on simultaneously, so I try and fit everything in, and then I ended up at the activities afterwards, but my calendar's open happily, so I'll be at the whole thing this year.
Have you been to others before?
Well, all the ones in Brandon. I haven't had occasion to been. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was happened to be at a conference in Winnipeg when theirs was on, I guess, a year ago, so I did get to watch the parade that year. I wasn't in it.
Right. So if anyone hasn't been to a Pride parade before, is there anything you could say to them?
Well, yeah, come on out, and it's just great for the whole community to come together and just show the inclusiveness that we all have for each other. And I think it's extremely important to the LGBT community that they know that everyone in the community is all on the same side, and we're just loving people, and we just all want to participate with one another.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Rick Chrest, for your dedication and your commitment to LGBT community here in Brandon, and we'll see you at the parade.
My pleasure. See you there.
City Councillor Lonnie Paterson of South Centred Ward 6 was also on hand at City Hall to share her thoughts on the importance of the flag-raising event and the growth of the LGBT2SQ community in Brandon. Very fortunate to be able to speak with City Councillor Lonnie Paterson. Tell me, how do you enjoy today's event?
Well, I think that the flag raising that kicks off Pride Week in Brandon is a really important part of the celebrations that are going on this week. As a city councillor, I feel very humbled that the community feels comfortable to approach City Hall and ask us to fly the Pride flag this week. So it's really great to be a part of that event, and I think it's a really important way to show all members of our community that we are trying our best to be as inclusive as possible.
Can you tell me why this is so important for the community?
I've been a resident in Brandon for, about a decade and a half now. And, when I first moved here, the LGBTQ community, I apologize, I don't know the new acronym as well, but that community, it did gather, but it gathered in smaller venues, it gathered in a more quiet way. So I think that what we see now with Pride and with the parade is what I think is that members of Brandon's queer community feel more comfortable to be out and proud, and I just think that's great. I think that it only happens on the shoulders of those that came before, and I have some dear friends that have worked long and hard in this community to help everyone understand and to create that safe space for themselves and their friends and allies. So for me, it means that our community is, our ethos of our community is one of inclusion and one of acceptance, and that's really exciting.
Have you been to other flag-raising ceremonies here at City Hall?
Yeah, I think this is my third. I've tried to come every year since I've been elected city councillor. I think it's important to be here and show support and be a part of it. It is a source of pride to see that flag go up the flagpole in front of City Hall.
Very much so. And other Eat Pride events this week, will you be attending?
I am really hoping to get to the opening at the Art Gallery this week at 7:30 on Thursday. There's a community gallery that will have a lot of pieces from members of Brandon's queer community. So I'm really excited to be attending that. I'm hoping to get out to a few other ones. Fortunately, can't make the parade this year, but I'll be there in spirit.
Thank you very much, Lonnie, for your words of support for the LGBTQ community here in Brandon.
Thank you.
I was also able to talk with SERC Program Facilitator and Brandon Pride Secretary Jason Fiedler, who reflected on the day's event and discussed with us the significance of the rainbow flag.
Great event today. The flag raising ceremony was awesome. So who put this together?
Really, it was all of Brandon Pride Committee coming together to make this happen, and the City of Brandon for graciously hosting us here.
Today we had a few speakers. Yourself spoke, and who else?
We also had our chair, Mariah Phillips. She was kind of introducing everybody and setting the stage for the day, and then we had Mayor Chrest speaking.
Can you tell us why flag-raising ceremonies are very important?
Well, yeah, kind of just the flag, right? The pride flag in general, what that represents for folks, because I feel for people like me that are a little bit younger, I'm in my 30s. I wasn't around for the creation of the flag. When people see it, they know exactly what it means without any words behind it. And so that's a really big deal for our community, so having that flag raised in front of City Hall it says something to everyone in Brandon and the region that flag's in such an important part of the city. It's let folks know the city's kind of supportive of what's happening with Pride. It's supportive of the LGBT community here in Brandon and Westman region. So it's providing visibility for folks that maybe feel like they can't be or have never been allowed to be around here. Yeah, that recognition, we exist. Yeah, we're here. You know, even if people aren't out, they don't want to come out. There's many reasons for that. You know, that flag's just showing, yeah, we're part of this community. You know, like it or not, you kind of have to accept that we're here. You know, we all work together and being represented. Yeah.
This might take a little bit, but you spoke so well on this today. Could you tell me about the rainbow flag itself, a little bit about the history and how it was created?
Yeah, so it was created, well, it was created by Gilbert Baker. I believe it was 1978. But Gilbert Baker was in the U.S. military, and he left. When he left, he landed in San Francisco and was part of the LGBT movement there. And so he was part of protests, marches, and political campaigns with a lot of people. And people were saying, well, we need something, we need a symbol, we need, you know, a flag to show. And so he created it at a gay community center in the attic, just hand dyed the fabric himself and sewed it together. Originally the flag was 8 stripes, and then the flag took off. People had it at protests, at marches, in their homes, wherever, doing that visibility, you know, showing that visibility, that recognition we were talking about before. And so when it became time to mass produce it, because he was hand sewing them himself before, he approached different companies. 8 colors changed to 6 just to be able to mass produce it easier. And then, yeah, it kind of took off. And now today, yeah, you can flag pride stuff on Facebook. You see the flag everywhere, worldwide too, you know. So if we were in another country right now and we were at a march and we saw that flag, we know what it means.
Yes, it's iconic. And we previously, there was a pink triangle that was used to identify, but can you explain why we don't use that symbol, or why it has changed the focus?
Well, some people still do use the pink triangle, right? You know, it's what people are comfortable with, and the pink triangle came from the Holocaust. So in concentration camps, we know about Jewish prisoners in those concentration camps had the yellow Star of David. So the Star of David's 2 triangles. There were Jehovah's Witness had their own color triangle, but for homosexuals, it was the pink triangle that was used to mark them in concentration camps. So a lot of people reclaim that and use that to show for the gay community, LGBT community, but some folks were like, well, this was a symbol put upon us. It was used to exterminate us. So people weren't really comfortable with that for some folks. So the pride flag being that it was created by someone that was in the community, it was for the community, and it was a celebration of the community rather than shame and extermination and death. A lot of people really rallied behind the pride flag instead.
And with the rainbow flag, the colors, they represent, do they represent anything metaphorically?
Yeah, so there's actually official reasons for the colors. Actually, let me read those too, because I don't know those off the top of my head. But yeah, so red is for life. Let me get them all. Orange is for healing. Yellow is for sunlight. Green is for nature. The blue is for serenity, and the purple is for spirit. But also just kind of the diversity of the LGBT community too. It just shows there's many different folks. I mean, even we keep saying LGBT, LGBTTQ2SQ, LGBTTQ2SQ, IAA. There's a lot of letters. There's a lot of identities. And we've also already talked about how this pride flag is represented around the world. So geographically, people of different religions, beliefs. We have a very diverse community, so the flag also represents and shows that as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time today. It was an awesome event, again, and I'm going to be talking to you several times during Pride Week, I'm sure. I'm going to come and bother you as you're organizing. Once again, that was Jason Fiedler, Program Facilitator at SERC, as a Sexual Education Resource Center here in Brandon, Manitoba. Thank you.
Thanks.
Pride Week continued on Tuesday with a lunch and learn at SERC offices in downtown Brandon. Rae Hutton is a postgraduate student pursuing their MA in the Faculty of Kinesiology at the U of M and presented on their thesis in progress, which examines the effect of athletic policy on transgender students and their ability to safely access sports programs in Manitoba High Schools. The delicious lunch provided by Brandon Pride was catered by the Lady of the Lake, while Rae set up and began to tell us about some of the findings of their research and what it meant. After their presentation, which lasted close to an hour, Rae was welcome to the idea of sharing their work with our listening audience. The following interview with Rae covers a lot of the main points in their thesis in development. You just completed a paper, your thesis, exploring the effectiveness and impact of the MHSAA policy on transgender students, learning from the experiences of trans youth in Manitoba High Schools. So let's just start with your name again and your background.
So my name is Rae Hutton. I actually haven't completed the thesis yet. I am still in the process of analyzing the interviews that I've conducted and finishing writing the final document, but it is in the process. And my background, I did my undergrad at the University of Manitoba in Women's and Gender Studies, and then I moved to my Master of Arts in, like you said, the Faculty of Kinesiology and Recreation Management. And I've always been actively involved in sports, but with the awareness that for a lot of transgender, non-conforming, or non-binary presenting folks, it can be really difficult to access sports and feel included.
And you are Minnedosa born, so you're Westman.
Westman, born and raised.
Okay. Well, how did you choose this topic? Is there any specific inspiration? And maybe you could just describe how there are some barriers for trans youth who are accessing sport. Maybe that can be a part of that answer as well.
Like I said, I've always been actively involved in sports, and through my undergrad degree, I gained some very important critical thinking skills about gender and how gender is performed, how people identify their gender, the perceptions and kind of stereotypes that people have around gender and gender identities. And with my kind of involvement or interest in sports, I started looking at how those two things often collide, and people who don't necessarily present their gender in a stereotypical way or who transgress their gender in some sort of way often are not included, and there's often a lack of space for those folks.
So we talked specifically about trans youth, but also you use words like non-binary and non-gender conforming, and just so everyone's aware of the different shades.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can talk about that. When I was growing up involved in sports, I was aware that my non-conforming gender was kind of the instigator of a lot of problems that I had accessing sports and kind of feeling out of place and having different kinds of questions thrown my way regarding my gender or why I would be on a girls' team when I presented very masculinely. So those things have always stuck with me, and I kind of questioned whether those experiences were still prominent for youth in high schools today, and whether or not the experiences that I had are still present. So I guess that's kind of also where it came out of.
And when you're finding out the difficulties that non-binary, gender non-conforming, trans youth were having accessing sport, the school climate is a huge issue. What are some of the things that trans youth are facing?
Right. So there's been some research recently from Catherine Taylor and Tracy Peter in Winnipeg, and as well as Jamie Veal and the Canadian Trans Youth Health Survey Research Group. And these kinds of studies have been showing that trans youth in Canadian high schools, while small in number, are very highly visible targets of multiple forms of harassment, specifically or especially for trans youth of color. And they experience transphobic comments coming from both students and teachers, and that are heard daily by the vast majority of trans youth. And these types of experiences contribute to 3 out of 4 trans students feeling unsafe in their schools.
What you asked in undergrad, you majored in women's and gender studies? Okay. Did that have any, did that influence you in any way?
Definitely. It definitely gave me kind of the foundation and the theory to be thinking critically about these types of topics and not just accepting kind of the taken for granted ideas of how we engage in sport or how sport is set up or how different aspects of society is set up, which is often in a binary type of way, only providing two options, men or women, boys or girls, and then expecting that people fit neatly into these categories.
Should we talk about the MHSAA policy now? Like, what is the policy to start off with?
Sure, okay. So the policy is I guess the official title is the MHSAA Policy on Transgender Students, which was implemented in 2015. And the policy statement is one sentence, and it says, any transgender student athlete may participate fully and safely in sex-separated sports activities in accordance with his or her gender identity.
And the motivation behind them creating this policy?
Yeah, so there were some kind of initial motivations and also some secondary motivations. The initial motivations that kind of came up from my conversations with the people who created the policy was that they wanted to be proactive in order to have a policy in place that kind of provided information. They had the education and awareness in case they had questions from coaches, parents, teachers, or student athletes themselves about trans athletes wanting to participate in sports. They also did have some secondary motivations, though, which was kind of brought up through the development of the policy, that they wanted to provide safe and inclusive and respectful spaces for trans youth who want to access high school sport in Manitoba.
Let's talk about developing the policy and implementing the policy. There was several people who were, and organizations that were consulted in developing the policy. Could you discuss some of those stakeholders?
Sure, yeah. The conversations that I had, the people creating the policy reached out to multiple different stakeholders to kind of hear feedback, consult on the drafts that they had created, kind of get feedback about different research that was out there circulating around, and some of these organizations that they reached out to were the Rainbow Resource Center was very influential, the 519 in Toronto. They also wanted to reach out to different organizations and associations that are directly connected to the MHSAA so that they could make sure that policies were aligned. So that would be like the Manitoba Association of School Superintendents, Manitoba Teachers Society, School Sport Canada, and those types of organizations.
But there was a glaring omission in these consultations in the trans youth themselves.
Right, yes. So there was very limited consultations with trans youth at the time of the policy development.
So a trickle-down approach was sort of the idea behind the implementation. Could you tell me about how that might have panned out?
Sure, yeah. So in all of the conversations that I had with those who created the policy, they kind of talked about this trickle-down approach or butterfly effect that in order to circulate the policy, so the Manitoba High School Athletics Association would share it with their networks and colleagues. For example, the Manitoba Association for School Superintendents, who would then share it with their networks and colleagues, such as individual superintendents and individual principals in their divisions. And then principals could share it with teachers, coaches, GSAs, athletic directors, and then eventually it would kind of filter down to students.
But there was some problems with the trickle down. In your research, you interviewed 4 students, and they were not aware of the policy.
Yeah, that's right. The 4 students that I interviewed weren't aware of the policy until I told them about it, and it kind of maybe highlights a breakdown in communication or breakdown in the filtering system, that this kind of information isn't quite reaching the people that the policy directly affects.
And when the policy was made public, Was there a reaction from media or others?
It was expressed that media was informed of the policy. After I looked through different media sites such as CBC, Winnipeg Free Press, Winnipeg Sun, Metro Winnipeg, those types of sites, there was actually only 2 articles that I found. One was a news article written by the Winnipeg Free Press, and one was an opinion piece included in the Free Press.
What was their opinions?
The news article just kind of broke down what the policy was about, kind of the idea behind creating the policy, and that was stated as kind of safe, inclusive environments, the right thing to do for trans students. And it also talked about a gender discrimination case, that a human rights complaint that MHSAA lost. And then the opinion piece also talked about, the opinion piece was mostly in support of the policy and supporting trans youth in high school sports. And I shouldn't say mostly, it was fully in support.
What were your interviews finding? What are some of the barriers, and what can be done for trans youth to make them feel more comfortable about accessing sports programs in Manitoba?
So some of the initial findings that I found, and again, this is kind of very preliminary because I'm still in the process of analyzing these interviews, but some of the main things that I found was that, again, none of the participants knew of the policy until I had informed them. None of the participants that I interviewed, the youth participants that I interviewed, engaged in high school sport, not currently or in the past in their high school careers. 3 out of the 4 participants mentioned that they would participate in high school sports if they perceived sports to be more inclusive. There was a variety of different reasons that the participants didn't engage in sport. It ranged from lack of interest and too competitive, extracurricular commitments that they already had. Also because not feeling comfortable in athletic spaces because of how it's divided up by gender in this binary organization. Change room settings were a big issue with only, again, providing binary options. Or there was a feeling of a lack of support from teachers and awareness of how binary change rooms could be affecting youth, and kind of a lack of overall support from teachers and other students in the school.
That was Rae Hutton presenting some of the research and findings on the thesis that they are currently working towards at the University of Manitoba's Faculty of Kinesiology. The reception of this presentation was really phenomenal, pretty much packed, and was a sign of the kind of support that there would be throughout this week of events. That same evening there was a trivia night at Double Decker that I also attended. While this is a regularly scheduled event, it was advertised and catered to the LGBT2SQ community as a pride event and partnership. The event was packed, a lot of fun, and although the trivia became increasingly and somehow not impossibly difficult, I was able to reconnect with a few friends and make a whole bunch of new ones. I thought I had some recordings with hosts Kate and Aaron, but my effort fell short. They told me that they were excited to be involved with Pride Week and even asked me a trivia question, which I failed. I want to thank them nonetheless for the interview I did not record and for a fun evening at the Double Decker. Wednesday night was movie night at Evans Theatre, featuring the film Fire Song, a Canadian full-length melodrama that deals seriously with First Nations subjects, directed by Adam Garnett Jones, who also has Aboriginal ancestry. I really liked that this film portrayed realistically the challenges of First Nations LGBTTQ, or Two-Spirited, among other issues important to First Nations people. I attended with my partner, who is Cree, and we both appreciated the efforts of Brandon Pride in providing some diverse cultural perspectives. This event was also very well attended, and again, it seemed to indicate a real thirst for this type of programming in Westman. Or it could have been the festival atmosphere of Pride Week, exciting an eager audience, or a bit of both. But the turnout was encouraging and even inspiring, and I hope to see more of this in the future. I want to pause the Brandon Pride Week 2017 coverage at this point because there's just so much to jam into one little episode, but I encourage you to return and listen to the next because we've only just begun this Pride coverage and there's a lot more excitement to come, especially the party that is the Brandon Pride March and Picnic. Thank you for listening. I'm Jan Eck, hosting this episode of Out for CJ 106 FM. Talk to you again soon.